Hello everyone, this is my review for Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. It's an interesting movie. It really kind of shifts perspective depending on whether or not you enjoyed Episode 7 uh, and in comparison to, say, Episode 1, or in comparison to, say, Episode 4, or and then in comparison to Rogue One. Now, why do I say that? Why do I even include Episode 1 in there? It's because whether you like to admit it or not, there are people who actually enjoyed the prequels for what they were. Some of them had great CGI, some of them explained Yoda in a more conventional sense, in a more general audience aspect. And there were those who did like the lightsaber duels. I still think that out of all of the Star Wars films, the two films with the best Star Wars duels are definitely Revenge of the Sith and then Return of the Jedi. As for the Last Jedi, it kind of okay. I'm gonna go out and say it from the onset. Is it a good or bad film? It's a good film. It is a very good film, if nothing else. Actually, I would venture a guess and say that it is just underneath a great film. It is a very good film. I don't know if it's a great film. And here's the thing. In terms of, if you like to say, in terms of acting portrayal per character, there are many things that are great about it. This is, let's have a moment for Carrie Fisher, who, as we all know, passed away before the movie was finished and released. She portrays Leia in a very, very wonderful light. It is still the same Leia that we knew, the headstrong person, but she is an older, more experienced person. Then let's look at Luke Skywalker, played by Mark Hamill, who is also, I would say he's very good in this film. He's certainly a lot better than he was in The Force Awakens, where he was just a marketing tool they used to get you into the cinema, and then you find out at the end of the movie he's just standing there, like a little hermit. Here, that's not the case. You could see that from the marketing material. If you saw the trailers, you definitely see it. There are definitely things in there that, as far as acting portrayals go, are an improvement. Kylo Ren is definitely a big one of that. Snoke looks pretty good, despite the fact that he's a CGI character. He is quite good, and he certainly looks a lot better than, say, Steppenwolf from Justice League. As far as Rey is concerned, Daisy Ridley, she portrays the character compellingly enough. She definitely does. I don't know what their plan is with her, but I think the new trilogy definitely intends to expand on her role, essentially, and what her place is as the chosen one, if anything. She is basically the primary protagonist, in the sense that the prequel trilogy, it was Anakin Skywalker, and then you had the origin trilogy, which is Luke Skywalker, and in this case it's her, even though typically episodically in nature the episode movies are typically supposed to be the Skywalker saga, but apparently they're going with Rey in this one. They deal with her origin story somewhat. It's not really a big part of it, even though they try to make it look like it's a big part of the story. It really is not. But nevertheless, Daisy Ridley does really well. Although I will say, her in physical combat situations, especially like when she's using her lightsaber, it is quite underwhelming, especially when you compare it to either Return of the Jedi or Revenge of the Sith. It really is not as good as those ones. I don't know whether that's deliberate or whether that's just supposedly part of the build-up, because let's be perfectly honest, even in Empire Strikes Back, lightsaber dueling wasn't that much better either. As far as John Boyega is concerned, his character FN, I think it's FN 2187, Finn. He was undoubtedly my favorite character in The Force Awakens. I thought he had a really, really good story to tell in the trailer for The Force Awakens, and I thought that was squandered really badly in the actual film. I'll give my thoughts on that if you guys want in a later video. And in here, in this movie, it starts off great with him, but unfortunately they do take the Force Awakens route again, and they take his supposed story arc and they squander it again. And then to make it worse, the character who is supposed to be his arch nemesis, Phasma, is even more squandered. She is just as useless in this movie as she is in The Force Awakens. Then we go to the one that a lot of people are interested in, which is Poe Dameron, because he is someone who, like, people look at him in The Force Awakens and are like, yeah, this guy's good, you know, like, his relationship with Finn is great, but he just didn't have enough to do in the movie. He has a lot more to do in this movie, but he has a lot more to do. I don't know if it's what I wanted him to be doing. I mean, there's some lessons he's supposed to be learning, but I just feel that the movie takes place, in his case, in too short a time span to really get the character development going, because it focuses far too heavily on, like, half the movie is Rey, and then the other half is everybody else. So they're all fighting for half the screen time, and then Rey gets the other half, and you're like, well, that's not very balanced, you know, but that's just the way that they went with it. That's the way Rian Johnson, the director, went with it, apparently. So, okay, how is the graphics? The graphics are a bit of a mixed bag. It depends on what you're looking at. If you're talking about, say, Snoke, Snoke looks pretty good, all things considered. You can tell he's CG. Definitely, but he's not as bad as he was in The Force Awakens. But granted, that was a hologram in general. In this movie, he is definitely, particularly up close. The CGI up close is actually not bad. Probably because his character's all, like, mangly and stuff. So yeah, that's actually pretty good. The Porgs, which is like the penguin version of Korg. Nah, I'm kidding. They're not. Those little birdie things that are on Luke's island. Okay, that's I know that in The Force Awakens, they talked about how much they wanted to use animatronics and how realistically they were going for that real view thing. Like, you know, like, yeah, we got practical effects. I kind of feel for the Porgs, though, you probably should have stuck with the CGI. I mean, because it became pretty obvious that there were some scenes where you have these cute little fuzzballs and they're like running around, and then you have these other scenes where it looks like someone's got a little kid's toy and it's just sitting there and it's like and so it kind of does detract, and it really feels annoying when it literally is shot by shot. Like, he's like, this shot has CG, that shot has practical, which looks really stiff, and then it's followed by another CG one. So you're just like, that's a little jarring. So there's definitely that. As far as the battles are concerned, I mean, it's a Star Wars film. You're going to have fantastic space battles. They definitely do follow up on the style that J.J. Abrams implemented in The Force Awakens, although far less lens flare. There's a lot less lens flare in this one. And there's a lot more just things like light and explosion. I can't get into too many spoilers, but I will say this, though. There's a lot of space scenes in here, in this film, with, like, things being shot at other things. That's all I'll say. Now, as for the storyline, there are, of course, very valid opinions and very valid concerns that people had for The Force Awakens. And I am one of the people. I genuinely thought The Force Awakens was a copy-pasted plot line from Star Wars: A New Hope, with a bit of Empire Strikes Back and a bit of Return of the Jedi, and I was like, it's basically you just rehash the thing and you put it in there, and you really, really didn't bother adding any value to the Star Wars universe and the lore, and it's deep, it's treasure trove of stories to tell. You don't really add anything to it in The Force Awakens. What does that mean for The Last Jedi? Okay, if you were to compare The Force Awakens to A New Hope and you look for similarities in that, you will find a lot. In fact, it's almost, like I said, it's almost copy-pasted in many cases. And you know what? I don't care if people go, oh, but it was meant to be that way. They deliberately did it that way. Yeah, calling a mistake deliberate doesn't change the fact that it's a mistake. I mean, if I wanted a black pot and you gave me a white one, I'm going to tell you this is the wrong color. I don't want you to say, oh, no, I meant to give you the white one. I'm like, yeah, it's still the wrong color. It doesn't change or detract from the fact that it's still the wrong color. So, in that, The Force Awakens definitely does have a copy-pasted plot. What about the comparison between The Last Jedi and The Empire Strikes Back? Okay, sadly, there are a lot of scenes in here that you look at it and you go, yeah, I can predict where this is going because I've seen this before, particularly in The Empire Strikes Back. Yep, there are more than a few scenes where that actually does happen, and it does tend to become a bit jarring. I mean, you look at it and you go, oh, yep, I remember that from The Empire Strikes Back. Oh, I look at that scene. Yep, that definitely reminds me of The Empire Strikes Back. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, sure. Empire Strikes Back. And it can't be helped, I think, in some cases, but I think it does become quite jarring the more you think about it. Because I watched The Empire Strikes Back in the lead up to The Last Jedi, which I think is a mistake, because by doing so, you really do see the similarities. And when you look at it, there is actually an entire story scene arc in this movie that is completely worthless. It has no purpose in the story. It has no payoff whatsoever. And when you look at it, it actually feels like they put it in there just to have a throwback to The Empire Strikes Back. That feels like the only reason they put it in there. And it's terrible. And there are some people who've given reviews about this film. They say that the film does drag in the middle. It does. And I gotta say, with the way that Rian Johnson did this film, I think he had a little too much to tell. Even within the time he was given. This is quite a long movie. And the sad thing is that it actually feels like a long movie as well. It's not just a long film. It feels like a long film. And there's so many things that go on, and like the movie's pace keeps going up and down. It's like big action set piece, subtle moment. Big action set piece, subtle moment. Big action set piece, suspense, subtle moment. Big action set piece, suspense, subtle moment. And it really doesn't blend well. And I think for going forward, I think the people at Disney need to realize that what made the original Star Wars treasures is that these big moments that you get, these explosive scenes, they happen as few times as you could possibly have them. Less is more. And in this film, it really just went for more, and as a result, you get the value of it less, and less each time you see it. How did they handle the Force? There's one scene in here that will make some fans go, "Oh yeah, that's amazing," and it'll make some people like me look at it and I go, "That's not how the Force works." I actually was laughing. I was like, "That's not how it works." It looked so incredibly fake, which is sad because it involves a titular character. And it's such a cool scene. but it was just handled very poorly. What else was handled poorly? Definitely, I have to give mention to this. I did say that Finn and Phasma's character are pretty poorly used. Finn's story arc is completely wasted in this story. It did not need to be in there wherever he goes. And they try to put him with this Asian chick. Her name is Rose, or some kind of engineering mechanic. And I'm like, why do you do that? The entire purpose of that arc was meaningless, and there's no need to do that. She doesn't need to be in the movie. You take her away. You don't even, you take the entire arc away, and nothing changes. You get the exact same ending. It doesn't change anything. And on top of which, the only thing that The Force Awakens had going for it was the relationship and the dynamic, right, between Rey, this daughter chosen of the light, this soon-to-be Jedi, and Finn. Her relationship with Finn, who is a stormtrooper of all people, right? These two come together. They have a meeting that is destined on a plan in the middle of nowhere, right? And these two have a destined meeting, and their relationship, you know, he risks everything for this girl. So you can tell he genuinely cares about her, and you can feel in the way she genuinely cares about him too. Especially when he goes out, he risks everything just to see her again, and when she sees him, she's overjoyed. So you can feel that there is a deep connection between the two. Sadly, this movie starts on that track and then creates an entire subplot to try and just erase that, and just like, nope, we're gonna be done with it. I'm like, why? I mean, I don't understand it, because it's such a wonderful concept, right? The fact that you could have a Jedi with a love interest that is a stormtrooper, a person who is a member of the evil force. That's amazing. That is such a good story. What would have been an even better story is if Finn were the actual Jedi, right? And Rey was the one that, was his love interest, and was someone who would be a partner with him, a journey. That'd be like a buddy comedy or a buddy adventure, and she was his love interest, she was his foil. That would have been amazing as well. But nevertheless, these two characters are the ones that you had going for you, and then when they use them in all the marketing and all the promotions and whatnot, all the tours, these are the two people that everyone turned to, and yet you go ahead and underutilize them. I don't really understand why you do that. So it's little things like that just kind of detracts from the film. And people talk about how this film goes in risky directions. I didn't see it. I didn't understand what they meant by that, because you have to understand, The Empire Strikes Back went in risky directions. Rogue One went in risky directions. When you take those two into account, The Last Jedi doesn't really go in risky directions. If anything, it takes a lot of leaps in logic. There are two things in here that don't make sense. One of them is to do with light speed and how that works, and the other one is to do with how the Force operates. In both cases, unfortunately, they kind of try to take one too many liberties with that, and it makes you go, yeah, that's a real stretch of the imagination. As you can tell, I mean, like I said, it is a very good movie, but clearly there are flaws with it, and many people are going to try and ignore those flaws, and they're going to get back behind this movie. But in the end, I think, essentially feeling, my feeling, essentially speaking, is that there are some scenes in here, particularly toward the latter half of the movie, that you should have saved for episode 9. It didn't need to be in episode 8 at all. It should have been a climactic scene in episode 9 that could have set up, 10 or whatever additional ones, but they do conclude the story of The Last Jedi in a sense. They do it does definitely mean The Last Jedi. It does conclude that arc, and it talks a bit about the Force and its nature with the light and the dark side, but it doesn't explain enough to get the general audience invested in it. And this, to me, is a big danger, because unless you know quite a bit about the nature of the Force between the light and the dark aspects, you're going to be quite lost in a bit of this. So, overall, what are my final thoughts? This movie is very good. It is a worthy addition to the episodic saga for Star Wars. Is it as good as the original films, episodes 4, 5, and 6? No. No, it is not. Is it better than the prequels? Yeah. But there's quite a lot that are better than the prequels, even. Speaking, episode 2 is really garbage. Episode 1 was wasted. Episode 3... Episode 3 was decent. This movie is still better than that. Is it better than The Force Awakens? In some aspects, yes. In other aspects, no. You're kind of 60-40. 60% of the movie is better than The Force Awakens. 40% of the movie is really not better than The Force Awakens at all. Is it better than Rogue One? It really depends. I loved Rogue One for for the value that it added to the Star Wars saga, and I liked Rogue One better than The Force Awakens. This movie, I will say, I liked as much as Rogue One. I think these two sit very close together. I might give Episode 8 the edge, but for now I think they both deserve to be in the same category. In terms of action spectacle, what? In terms of storyline, though, Rogue One's is still better. It adds more value to the Star Wars universe. This one here kind of detracts from it. The opening title crawl text, I know they said for Rogue One they should have had this opening title crawl, and I get that, but the very first line in The Force Awakens, it kind of pissed me off because it didn't make any sense to me. It was the very first line. I was just like, how did this happen? It still doesn't make sense, and seeing it twice in a row, I said the second time and it didn't help. It still was worse. I was like, that doesn't make sense at all. And by the end of this movie, you kind of end up in your, you end up in your cliffhanger state, which again is very reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back, and you will find a lot of comparisons. But overall, I think it is still a very good movie. So definitely in my book, this would be a 8 out of 10. Very good film, and one you will watch definitely. Whether I'd consider definitely watch again. This one will shake the boundaries of all Star Wars movies going forward. Nah, not really. So it's a good movie. It's a very good movie. So definitely an 8 out of 10, and I think that is something that people will enjoy. People will definitely enjoy it. But there will definitely be those who had issues with Episode 7. They will have some issues with Episode 8. Some things will be great. Other things will not. One of which will be the runtime. This movie has a runtime that is quite long, and you do get quite tired of it. When you come out of the film, you'll be like, man, that movie probably could have lost half an hour and it would have been better. Anyway, thank you for watching my review. If you liked it, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. This is my first ever video that I'm putting up here for movie reviews, and I hope the channel will grow from there. So thank you.